Hi, welcome back to my channel, excusemeprofessor.com. So, the last two videos we got up to picture 7. So we are now on picture 8. This is chapter 3. This is for the political ideology class, the modern political ideology class that I'm in right now. And what I'm doing with these videos, once again, just to reiterate, is I'm just showing the effectiveness of what I call storyboarding, where I put the words into picture form, so you are actually creating your own photographic memory, you could say. So this is video 3, and what I'm doing right now is I'm describing the pictures that you're going to see pop up. This is a very effective way. The other reason why I want to do this tutorial is also just to show how you can utilize a camera or your phone to videotape yourself talking out loud with the material to play back to you right before the test. So let's get started. And so we ended on classical liberals and making mistakes. And so just to reiterate, that is just about the fact that people, because they have a rational mind as human beings, that we should have a right to make mistakes because we learn from them. Therefore, government and parents and all that shouldn't come along and take over us learning from those mistakes by too much control, by too much protection, because then we won't learn to grow as human beings about what we should and should not do in our future. So that's where we left off. So the next picture, so now we're going to talk about the Renaissance. So this is a bit more about the history where liberalism came from. And so this is picture 8. And so what you're looking at right now is you see 2 pyramids, and one of the pyramids has only 2 tiers and another one has 3 tiers. And so on the bottom of that pyramid is you see some like grass, so that's like farmers, and basically it's talking about stations or your place in society. And in the Renaissance period, this was the very start of when people could actually gradually move up and create a middle class. Before then, in the bottom of this pyramid where there's just grass, if you were a farmer, that was your station, that was your occupation for the rest of your life. You could not move up into royalty and nobility. That was for, if you had the right blood in you. And so you are stuck, basically, fixed, they call it, fixed station. So on the top of the pyramid that only has 2, is you have the king with the money and they have the land, and then underneath, of course, are the peasants and the farmers that cannot go up in life. Then you have the yellow arrow that is moving towards where we really start, the very first start of a middle class. And how this happens is you go from the peasant farmers, and remember, we also talked about the Black Plague, which really affected being able to move up in mobility because so many people died. They had to fill spots, right? That now is empty and there aren't enough people on the top to fill them. So people were able to move up in this. Here, we're talking more about economics. And in the Renaissance period, you're getting a lot more trade. You have the printing press just starting, so people becoming more literate, understanding more, and money. Because now you're going from an agricultural society where you are just making food for yourself and the nobles on top, but now you have a surplus of food. And with the surplus of food, you can sell it. And with selling it, you can make money, extra money, in your pocket that you didn't have before. And that is one way that the middle class was able to start getting ahead. So what happened is you still couldn't move up into nobility where the king was because you didn't have the royal blood, but you started to question, well, now I have more money, I'm on top, or I'm getting closer to how much money they have and me, so now there's becoming more of an equality, but yet I still can't make rules and laws for myself. I'm still being controlled by these people. So when there was more of a gap, you could say, that was different. But once that gap started shifting, then it changed what people were thinking about themselves and what they should be able to do. So on the side you have a little blue person, and he's reading, he's starting to become educated, becoming literate with the printing press going on. Because he has a surplus of money, it frees up his time, so now he has more time, and then he's becoming, richer. So you have this gray arrow going over to the castle where it says "Burr," so in the castle it's cold. They might not even have the same technology as the person in the middle class. The middle class person now has new technology. Their porta potties might be better in the house. You have this chimney going on in the house underneath the blue person. So they got the size of the house, the land. So they have this new, you could say, wealth developing, but they're still not able to make rules and laws for themselves. They're still being controlled. And once again, they just, thinking, now that I am closer to them in terms of financial benefits and the way I am living, which is maybe even better than how they're living in their big cold castle, why shouldn't I be able to also be part of the governmental process and make those rules and laws for myself and others? So here you have the blue person on the bottom dreaming about how he can overthrow or take over and be at the top himself, so he can do that. And that is where we talk about how like the republic governments and that, where people started moving towards a democracy, started to occur. And it started to occur with now this new wealth in this middle class sector that wasn't created before until trade really got going, agriculture and surplus. So the most important thing to remember is it was when people started being able to create a surplus for themselves that then they were able to move up financially, and then with the financial movement they wanted to move up as well on the more top of the pyramid in terms of how they could really become part of the lawmaking process. So that is 8, the Renaissance. And so here we have 2 words on picture number 9, and those are objective barriers and subjective barriers. So these are 2 extremely important terms. So an objective barrier, as you can see, there's an eye, there's the sun, there's a hill with some plants growing on it, there's my little law, and that's basically saying what an objective barrier is something you can see, you can touch. The sun is, you have there, so it's there, I can say the sun is there. It's not a philosophical question where the sun exists. It's I think of it as an object. So objective equaling an object that you can see, just like a law, you can read the law and say, this is what the law says. It's not a philosophical question about, about the law. It's actually in writing, right? So that's objective barriers. Barriers meaning things, if you have a law that might be an objective barrier, it might be a law saying, once again, women don't have the right to vote. African Americans don't have the right to vote. These barriers that come into play. One of the debates now is whether or not people that have been incarcerated should have the right to vote, because once you get incarcerated, in a lot of places, most places, except for I think now Florida changed this rule, is that once you get incarcerated, you're not allowed to vote, but you served your time, but then your voting rights have been taken away for life. And this affects African Americans the most, because the majority of people, fortunately, that end up in being incarcerated oftentimes are African Americans. So, and people of color. So that would be an objective barrier that is in place right now that is actually coming into question. Another objective barrier was that only a man and a woman could be married. And with gay rights coming through, now gays are allowed to be married, but that was an objective barrier in terms of lawmaking that said if you were a gay couple, you could not be married. It was just between a man and a woman. Now that has changed. So those are some objective barriers that we have seen in today's time that have been, you could say, either trying to be overturned right now or have been overturned. A subjective barrier, as you can see, it's someone thinking, there's some philosophical thought. A subjective barrier might be he's against women being on his board of directors. We talked about that in a different picture. You have someone here poverty-stricken. He's, doing his, pushing his cart, and it says lesser loser. That would be an objective barrier of how someone was thinking about that poor person. Like, all homeless people are just drug addicts, and therefore why should I help them? Why should even part of my tax money go towards helping them with the shelter and all that? People do think, well, they're there for a reason, that's their station, and they have to pull themselves up. I shouldn't be able to help them. So that would be a subjective barrier. Therefore, someone is thinking about why they shouldn't help this poor person. Along with religion, so you have, once again, my Catholic Church symbol, and you have the Muslim symbol crossed out. Once again, a subjective barrier, a belief system where religion, only one religion should exist. Muslims shouldn't exist, Jews shouldn't exist, only one religion, or vice versa. So that would be a subjective barrier, because that is a belief system that is, you could say, a philosophical question or thought. It is not something actually like tangible law or the sky or the book I have. So that would be a subjective barrier. Or as I think about it, you're subjecting somebody with your thoughts, and those thoughts are creating a negative, what I think of as a negative effect on somebody else moving forward within their own life. So that is objective barriers and subjective barriers, and how that works with that picture. So now, so this is picture 10, and we are looking at, the first one is opportunity, and the second one is outcome. So this tends to go with the more subjective barrier comment, where so you have these different terms. Once again, outcomes tend to be more with the non-liberals or neoliberals, and what you're looking at here. So the opportunity is basically saying that we shouldn't have a law. You can see my law symbol once again, it's crossed out. You see the woman being crossed out. And so there is a law put in place in California, and this was the example given in class, where you have to have at least one woman on your board if you have like a public business. So therefore, the outcome is that there's one woman on the board. What the liberals in the opportunity area are saying, well, we don't agree with that there should be a law. What really needs to be changed is people's way of thinking. And once again, this is my interpretation of it. There's people need to think. So you have the little bubble and the light bulb of change, and I have the word change there. So people's thinking needs to change for this to occur, for a woman to be on the board, and maybe they're fined, their bigotedness is fined, or some other action, but not just to say a woman, not just to write in a law and say a woman should be put on the board to show an outcome. So that is where number 2 comes in, outcome. Whereas neoliberals say, no, what we do is we do need a law. We want to see the outcome, and probably they're thinking with the outcomes and that's going to change people's minds. It's kind of like a reverse way of thinking. So they want the law, they want equality, they want to see the equality, even though this woman could be surrounded by a bunch of bigoted men, but with the law, it says that she has to be there. And the argument that goes on with these types of laws and rules, whether they're, correct or not, or whatever side you are when it comes to it, is what if the woman isn't qualified, but she has to be given the job? So maybe 50 men hand in their resumes. It's a job for a construction site place, and 50 men apply, and only 3 women apply for the job because it tends to be a male-dominated job. That does happen. And so those 3 women, they have to have a woman. So all the 50 men are disqualified, and only the 3 women are allowed to actually get a job because there's only one spot, right? At the table at the moment. But maybe those 3 women don't have the qualifications. Maybe they haven't gotten the schooling. So the man over here who got disqualified would actually have been better for the job, but wasn't allowed to get the seat because the seat has to go to a woman. So there is that debate, and you can think of the debate however you wish. I can see it both ways myself, and so basically in the opportunity section is that change needs to happen first before a woman gets put in place. It's not about the law. And when I think of this in today's terms, see, I'm from a different generation than the millennials. So I can definitely see where the opportunity comes along, because as a woman, I have definitely seen where my generation, due to whatever outside societal influences, where I was portrayed as maybe less intelligent or not up to the task as much. I felt it in certain jobs, especially male-dominated jobs, and in the end, I didn't see it as something to be mad at with these men as much as it was something within my generation, within society, that made that more prominent. When I see the millennials together, between man and woman, these younger people, their mindset's very different. There's a lot more equality. Women can be just as intelligent as men. The commercials are even really different. Body image is really different. No matter what body type you have, you should be proud of it. So there's a lot of different influences now that we have that I did not have in my generation. So I can definitely see where, just because the millennials have been given a different mindset in terms of equality of people, in terms of what people can do, even in embracing different religions and different people and more individualistic thinking, that to them, hiring a woman, they go, yes, we want a woman on our board. We don't have to have a law to make it so that we see the outcome. The outcome is coming because we have changed. Just like I think gay marriage is one of the best things here. People in society's mindset changed. Therefore, the law could be passed for that to occur. For people who, no matter who you loved, you could marry, right? So, and that law came about through the evolution of, I feel like, societal thinking within this country, and that had to happen first before the law was able to be implemented. So that's those two. That's how I can explain those to myself, and how the difference between opportunity and outcome come into play, especially when it comes to laws and liberalism. So here is picture 11. So this will be the last picture before another little coffee break here. Give ourselves a little moment. So this is talking more about the definition of classical liberals. So there's actually two separate now liberal areas. So there's the classical liberals, and then what we're going to get into later is what's called the welfare liberals, which is later in the chapter. So the classical liberals, we talked about this a little bit before, is that everybody has different paths. So as you see, there's 4 paths there. There's A Street, B Street, C Street, and I guess you could say D Street, which I don't have on here. And everybody ended up on a different path. So one person has a nice middle class house with the tree, and you could say the white picket fence, and I could have drawn in a little dog there. You have the city with the factories and the skyscrapers and all that, and that's another path. You have the nature and the wilderness. Maybe someone is at Yosemite doing a job there, and that's what they do and that's what they love. They're not looking for a 6-figure income, and so that's where they find their happiness. That's their path. And then you have the tent, which is actually describing the tent cities we are seeing popping up now everywhere. We have quite a few of them popping up even in the Napa Valley. I've run by one actually a couple times on the river trail. So basically, once again, they're saying that we might all have the same dream, or we have different dreams, but we are all people that are going to have different paths, and those paths are going to take us in completely different directions. And once again, that is about our freedom as individuals and building that balance within society. Then underneath, you have unfair, that, of course, in the past, that you had to have noble and royal blood to be on top and make those laws. And basically they're saying that was unfair to do that, and they're all for people having the right, once again, to engage and run their own lives and their own paths, and you shouldn't have to have royal blood to be on the top of society and you're on the bottom because you don't. It's not about blood, it's about opportunity, it's about your potential and having the ability to get there. And if you have the ability to take a political science, major in it or not, get in a government office, that's your right. That's your right to take that track. You don't have to have the blood of the senator to take that position, right? So that's what they're talking about in this picture. Okay, I'm going to pause. Let's take a little coffee break or tea break, water break, whatever you need, and I will be right back. Okay? Welcome back. So we have 2 more pictures to go through, and this will be the end of this series between pages 55 through 59 out of this book, Political Ideologies and the Democratic Ideal. This is the book that we are using in my class, and so we're going to go through the last 2 pictures right now. So religious conformity. So once again, this is getting back into the history of where liberalism came about and the history behind it. So religious conformity, obviously conformity is trying to conform everybody to one thing, right? religious conformity, that we all had to believe one type of belief system. If we didn't, then we're ostracized a lot of times. Back then, we would have been punished for believing anything else. So what happened was, here you see Rome is crossed out because Rome fell. Rome was huge. It had a huge impact and influence, including their governmental system that was put in place. But in the end, Rome did fall. And with it, there was no government. The only thing left to help establish any type of rule was actually the Catholic Church. So what people tried to do was try and separate, you could say, church and state. Well, the Catholic Church didn't want that to happen, because then they would lose their power, their control over the people. So what you have here is you have kind of an unhappy person, from the Catholic Church, who is not very happy about losing this control and power and how to maintain it. So that's the question. Well, when Rome fell, you had all these nobles and all these commanders that now had no leader, but they had the land, they had the house, they had the peasants underneath them. So their job was trying to control them and saying, well, now I'm king of my castle, and I am now your lord, and you are beneath me, and I am here to now control you with my laws, my jurisdiction, my policies, and all that. But the people were hard to control. So the church and these nobles, these heads, came together and you could say, made an alliance and a pact. And so that's like the heart, came together. And with the church, they were able to control the commoners by, you can see the little commoner right here, by using, salvation. So if you're a good person, you would go to heaven. You see like their little spirit moving up to the sun, or hell, or be condemned to hell. And the church, of course, at this point, could make that distinction and tell someone, I'm giving you salvation, you're going to go to heaven because you've been a good person, or you're going to be condemned to hell. And that is how they actually controlled society once Rome fell. And then that helped the nobles control them because they made this pact. The church would use salvation as a way to control, and then the nobles could control their people as well through that pact, that alliance. So that's that picture right there, and part of that history in a very short and brief time frame. And then ascribed status, that's a very important term also. We're going to talk about functionality. So subscribed status, once again, goes back to where you're born. It's fixed. That's your station. If you're a peasant, you're a peasant. At this point, if you're noble, if you're a king, you're a king. So wherever your station is, it's fixed. And one of the reasons for that being fixed, and also have a prayer hand, is that if you go outside of your functionality status, the society is just going to fall apart. So, and that's where you have society and like this like little dead face. So you have three functionalities here. You have the praying hands, you have the fighter, the warrior, and then you have the peasant. So these are the three main functionalities that were hugely important to society at the time to maintain. So once again, it wasn't about individuality. It was about what your function was. And if you go away from that function, society is going to fall apart, because there isn't going to be that person to do that job, to farm that land, to print those books maybe, or whatever your station is, to do the metal work you need to do. In class, he mentioned these on the History Channel, they had these shows, these reality shows where it was like the 1900s and people had to live in the 1900s. And one of the things that people found very quickly was that their individuality went away on these shows when you were living in the 1900s or Civil War, or even further back. And it was all about functionality. So whatever you could do, if you were the strong man that could chop down the wood, that became your job. If you were a couple of teenagers, then maybe you were watching the kids and cooking the food because that was your functionality to keep the place going and moving forward. So everyone had to have a job. If you knew how to build, then that became your functionality, and you ended up staying in that area. Now we've developed more where we were able to, through technology and this and that, where that's not as strong, but that was the basis of what functionality is and why they felt functionality and staying in your spot was so important, so that society wouldn't die and disappear, and the arm is wanting to be the leg, and the leg is wanting to be the arm, and it's just not going to work that way. So I have here what you can do, and once again, it's fixed. You have, in this triangle, you have, the peasants, you have, and you have the warriors and the nobility on top, where you have to have the royal blood, and it's all fixed. You cannot move up. You definitely don't want to move down, and that's it. That's your life. So that is not picture. So now we are going to get to the very last one. Yay! Let me flip my pages here. So this is the last picture. So this is picture number 13. We're going to talk about the Black Death and how this really affected society, along with the printing press. So the Black Death, as you can see in this picture, 1 in 3 people died during the Black Death. By the way, take World History 1 if you want to learn more about this part of history more in depth. And what happened was that so many people died that, once again, as I said before, you couldn't move up. Well, so many people died. It left so many sectors of society, that functionality that we were talking about, just couldn't function that way anymore. There weren't enough people to stay on the bottom. There are definitely, people dying even on the top. So the plague really affected all aspects of society. It affected, of course, more people in the cities because they're more condensed. And it was a contamination of, rats with contaminated fleas on them that would then bite the person. That's how it started. And then eventually the strand actually got to the point where just being around a person, you could get it from there. When it mutated. So you see here, all these people died on every level in this triangle. Even the king is popping off on the second triangle down below. So the peasant farmer is now able to hit up in the middle and then able to end up on the top, because they just needed people to keep society functioning and going. The other thing that occurred around this time was the development of the printing press, the Gutenberg Bible, which was the first Bible that was actually printed, which got the Bible in the hands of people. So no longer, once again, that functionality, so no longer did you have to get the Word of God from the priest. You were able to actually read it for yourself and become literate and think about it on your own. Not just, this is what I'm saying as the priest on the totem pole, on the pulpit. You could read it for yourself and thinking about it for yourself. And the next thing we're going to go into actually is about Martin Luther and how he played a part in this with the printing press and his ideas on it. But this was huge, because now it's shifting the mindset of once again, the status of what Catholicism was about and how much control they were able to maintain, and the split now that goes into Protestant and Catholics during this time, because of the printing press and the Bible being able to be distributed to other people. And then those people now are starting to think once again, well, what is the truth? Well, what should I believe? And having their own ideas instead of being indoctrinated with somebody else saying what they should believe. So this was, once again, a huge moment in history. The Black Death, what the Black Death did politically, because it killed off all these people, and then the printing press coming along as well, and then changing the literacy rate, changing people's ways of thinking. So that was this picture, and that is all I have for you this time. So the next videos I'll be creating, when I keep creating these videos, I'll probably talk about the pictures, but I probably won't post them. It's a lot more time consuming to organize, and now I have to like speed up my own educational process here. I don't care about you, but I need to speed up my own educational process. So I'll probably keep making videos for myself, post them just so if other people find value in them, they can watch them too, especially for the class. And that is it for today. I hope subscribe and like if you wish. I hope you found this really effective, and I will see you later. Bye. Di